10 years ago, Alexander Chin put a knife to his neck. He said to his parents that he would never marry anyone but me in this life. 10 years later, he picked up that knife once again. But this time, it was to make me apologize to his little girl. The Alexander Chin who said he would never betray me when he was young. Now he protects the shivering little girl in his arms, treats me like a beast of water, and no longer sees half of his former love. In a trance, I remembered the young man who said he would be good to me for the rest of my life. I suddenly realized 10 years of marriage had come to a complete end. So I filed for divorce for the first time. Alexander Chin, let's leave each other alone. I do not agree to divorce. Alexander Chin rejected my claim without even thinking about it. He frowned slightly and looked down at Luna Luo, who was being held in his arms. Again, as if realizing something, he slowly let go of the other person, but still vigilant in protecting the person behind him, lest I hurt her. And the knife held in Alexander Chen's hand. The tip of the knife, but always aimed at me, cold and piercing. He promised. Sophia Su, I can assure you that Luna Luo will never affect your position. After saying that, he paused for a moment, and continued, but you must promise me that you will not come back to Luna Luo's trouble. The trouble that Alexander Chin said in his mouth. Just like at this moment, Luna Luo faced that clear and wretched slap mark. If Alexander Chin had come back later, I might have grabbed Luna Luo's hair, pushed her head down on the coffee table, and used the broken glass of the glass cup on the floor to cut her face and hands, so that she would never be able to show up in front of me in her life. Crazy and vicious. But I used to be an emotionally stable person. Over the years, I rarely got red-faced with anyone, let alone argued. Like today, I've done it regardless. It was even the first time. I glanced back at my 2 children who were hiding in the bedroom, but still insisted on opening a crack in the door to peek in. My Sophie and Nate. They still had visible pinch marks on their faces, thanks to Luna Luo. So I couldn't stand it. Alexander Chin probably got a kick out of me too. The little girl he has been pampering for more than a year is now covering her red and swollen face, crying to him about my evil deeds. And that teenager who once said that he would never fail me in this life. Eyes full of rage, ignoring the cries of the children next to him. He picked up the knife that was sitting on the counter when I tried to strike again. It was pressed against my neck to calm me down. But once upon a time, he used that same knife on his own neck, but to tell his parents that in this life he would never marry anyone but me. We were able to get married, have a couple of cute kids, and be happy again. Unfortunately, everything had changed. Sophia Su, we have been married for 10 years. We are too deeply involved. We will die together. Do you understand? Alexander Chin said this with determination in his eyes, totally not paying attention to Luna Luo's grudging gaze. She wanted to get to the top. Otherwise this year-long affair, under Su Xingzhan's meticulous concealment, under my absolute trust in him, I should have, for the rest of my life, never found out. But Luna Luo took the initiative to find me. This little girl, who grew up and went to school under the joint sponsorship of Alexander Chin and I, knocked on the door of my house in such a dignified manner, with photo after photo of her and Alexander Chen's intimacy. Sister Sophia Su, I am very grateful to you and Brother Jane for sponsoring me to go to school. But a favor is a favor. A sentiment is a sentiment. So it doesn't mean I have to return Brother Jane to you. I also know that you and Jane have been a couple for many years. But you're older now and not fresh anymore. But I've just turned 20. I'm young and pretty. So what are you going to compete with me? You guys shouldn't be able to do it more than a couple times a month, right? But you know what? When Jane and I were together, every night, he said he has urges for me. Sister Sophia Sue, does brother Jane still have that urge for you? Every word hurts me to the core. That day was the most devastating time in my life. I can't bear to remember it again. So I just looked at Alexander Chin in front of me and repeated my previous words. Alexander Chin, let's let each other go. Okay? At this moment outside the window, cicadas were chirping. In a trance. I remembered that summer when I was 16 again. The same sweltering heat. The same cicadas chirping. And on that day, Alexander Chin, a transfer student, crashed into my sight for the first time under the teacher's introduction. The sun was shining. The breeze was blowing the corners of his clothes. And his clean white shirt was not stained with dust. It's a moment that makes one's heart flutter at a glance. And as class president, I had the obligation to lead new students to familiarize themselves with the class. So we have a reason to contact. At that time, I only knew his name was Alexander Chin. From the most prosperous Kyoto. His family was supposed to be very good. Maybe he was too naughty or made some mistake. So he was banished to this small city. But that's not what I care about. All I know is that I should fulfill the teacher's instructions and let him integrate into the class as soon as possible. Of course. I also had my own little thoughts. He was just too good-looking. I don't think I'm a person of substance. But I always pay too much attention to good-looking people and things. You can also say that it is fate. Alexander Chen and I have been at the same table for 3 years. From the beginning of the slightly formal relationship of classmates. Gradually become a good friend who can talk about anything. And because of a few occasional line of sight collision, I felt my heartbeat accelerate. Looked at the tip of his gradually reddened ears. There is a kind of quiet emotion in the mouth of the heart to grow. You could say it was heartfelt. At the end of the college entrance exam, he held my favorite calla lily and asked me if I dared to be his classmate for another 4 years. I, Sophia Sue, have been afraid of everything since I was a child. What's there to be afraid of? So that summer, we applied for the same volunteer program and went to the same strange city. I think I met love. For years in college. Calm and happy. We never let go of each other's hands. Until the day of graduation. A bejeweled woman approached me. She claimed to be Alexander Chen's mother. She despised me openly and secretly. And said how the Chen family was a big family. So you have to be careful in choosing your daughter-in-law. Marrying within one's social class is paramount. An ordinary girl from a small city like me shouldn't rely on marrying to change her social class. Thinking of reaching heaven in one step. Just like the TV show. The blank check was pushed in front of me. Atmospherically saying for me to fill in any number. But, again, not quite like the TV show. I didn't have time to react. Alexander Chen, who had gotten the news, hurried over. The check that I hadn't even looked at yet. It turned into a flurry of flotsam and jetsam in front of me. That day, Alexander Chen held my hand very tightly. Seems to be still worried that I will falter. Repeatedly told me. Sleeve. A check is not much money. As long as you do not let go of my hand, I will give you whatever you want. At that time all I could think of was, Alexander Chen, I don't want your money. I just want your wholehearted love. At that time, I was so young and impetuous that I thought love was everything. Alexander Chen is my all. Until a few years later, I realized how wrong I was. Later, I only remember that afternoon. Alexander Chen for me and his mother argued hysterically. Face red. At the end of the day, He took the cake-cutting knife from the bar and held it to his neck. It made a clear, thin trail of blood. He was determined and firm. "I'm not like my father. I don't have so much fancy. And I only want to keep a Sophia Sue in this life, Mother. I hope you can fulfill us." Perhaps Alexander Chin was too determined. Or perhaps the red color is too blinding. In the end, Chen's mother gave in. But when she left that day, she looked at me with a deep meaning that I couldn't understand. But at that time I did not understand. I just thought that every family has its own problems. My parents love each other, but still cannot avoid the traditional bone. Love younger brother far more than me. Su Xingjian's parents were once a loving couple. But the Chin family has a tradition of sponsoring mountain children to go to school. That young, timid, but delicate girl just broke into the eyes of Chen's father. He was moved. Cheating. Adopting. Cheating again. Adopting again. After tasting the sweetness of indulging in love, he began to get out of hand, and there were more and more women around him. The intoxicated life is always full of too many temptations. Chen's father, who was in a high position, began to enjoy this extravagance. And at the same time, he and Chen's mother drifted apart. Arguing, crying, threatening. All of them are useless. The two of them had a year and a year, until the woman outside the door with a small belly is not yet obvious, begging Chen's mother to give her a way out. Alexander Chen looked at his mother's tears, and then looked at the seemingly pitiful, but actually hateful woman. He moved his hand. The woman rolled down the steps, and blood stained the entrance to his house. Chen's father was so enraged that he sent him to school in his hometown. Then Alexander Chen and I met, got to know each other, and fell in love. But in the end, the hero became the villain. Alexander Chen, who detested the third party, fell in love with Luna Luo, the poor student he sponsored, and even went so far as to spend a fortune for her, purchasing a multi-million-dollar mansion. So it wasn't until many years later that I realized. The deep meaning in Chen's mother's eyes that day turned out to be not out of touch and compromise for this love. Rather, it was pity, the root of inferiority brought about in the genes. Like father, like son, this is the reincarnation, but also the cycle. Never. She was always advising me not to repeat her mistakes. Unfortunately, when I realized it, it was too late. Unexpectedly, Alexander Chen did not agree to my request for divorce. We met at 16. We fell in love at 19. We got married at 25. At 26, we had our first child. At 29, our second child was born. Until this year, at 36, we have long been inseparable, both emotionally and financially. So he is not willing to divorce me. A wife and children at home, a tender lover outside. Alexander Chen wants to keep it that way. Not to mention that, once divorced, those shares he gave me in the beginning when he loved me the most were enough to make him a metamorphosis. The Chen family is not a bastard without ambition. Alexander Chen is not the only heir either. But for me to give up everything and leave with just my child, I can't do that either. What belongs to me, I must take as well. That's why we're at a standstill. As at this moment, Alexander Chen once again offered to calm me down while he took Luna Luo away. Luna Luo had several bloody marks on her arm. One of them, deep enough to see through to the bone, was scratched by me with glass. Alexander Chen sighed, dropped a sentence. Sophia Sue, you first calm down at home. There is something. We will talk about it afterward. Then, He held Luo and left. And even though Luo was injured, she still gave me a provocative smile before she left. I was so angry that I grabbed the ashtray on the table and smashed it. "Aw!" Luo screamed. The ashtray smashed on her forehead. Alexander Chen carried her and ran to the door. But the door was not closed. I could hear the young girls whimpering. I could also hear Alexander Chen calling me crazy. Sad. Pathetic. Pathetic. As soon as they left, Sophie and Nate came out of the bedroom, siblings holding hands, and cautiously came to me. I half crouched on the floor and Nate opened his hand to me for a hug. "Mom, don't cry. Sophie and her brother will always be with you." 10-year-old Sophie, understanding and calm, even if there are still pinch marks on her face. She can endure the pain and coax me. Nate, on the other hand, reached out and wiped the tears from the corners of my eyes. Nate will always protect his mom and sister, too, for the rest of his life. 7-year-old Nate, with a bloody glass cut on his palm, similarly refrained from screaming out in pain, choosing to coax me first along with his sister. That woman was really nasty. Stealing Daddy's keys and coming into our house to strut her stuff. Sophie wrapped her arms around my neck and kissed the corner of my lips again. Today, even though it was the weekend, I had a temporary job, so I left the kids with the live-in aunt. But I didn't expect Luo would actually take advantage of this gap to come to my house. The live-in auntie was washing fruits in the back kitchen. The two kids were playing on the swing set in the backyard, and Luo quietly walked over and asked Sophie to call her mom. Sophie has always been an early learner. She was vaguely aware of the relationship between Luo and I, so she told Luo to get lost. Luo is very angry. And Sophie said, "Your father already do not love your mother. If you do not hurry to please me, when your father married me into the door, I will let him marry you to the mountains." The year I ate bitter. Luo is a girl from the mountains. The year Alexander Chen and I got married. Following the tradition of the Chen family, we were going to sponsor a group of children who wanted to go to school but couldn't afford it. There were boys and girls of all personalities. Luo, who was 9 years old at the time, was skinny but her eyes were bright. She took the initiative to pull on my sleeve. And I said, "Sister, I want to go to school. Please sponsor me. I will repay you later." But I didn't realize that her so-called repayment was to hang out with my husband. The 19-year-old girl was full of youth. With her mouth clamoring for repayment, she appeared in front of Alexander Chen again and again, stubborn and new. In the end, due to her ignorance, she was counted and drugged. Alexander Chen happened to pass by. The drug is strong. The little girl is obsessed with delicate, crying poor and cute. He finally could not bear it. And then, it was the messy clothes scattered all over the bedside. It is Alexander Chen to our successful 11 years of marriage. Hand-painted the end. Luo, on the other hand, was far more ambitious than that. So came to my house. So said those things to my daughter. Sophie was angry and yelled at her to get out. Luo was angry too. Raising her hand, she pinched Sophie's cheek hard. The little girl's skin was tender, and the force of the pinch left a bruise mark in no time. Nate saw his sister being bullied and rushed up. The 7-year-old boy, in the end, was not able to beat the 20-year-old Luo, and pushed so hard that he hit the table, and the glass on the table slid to the ground. Nate fell similarly, and when he braced his hands on the ground, there were shards of glass on the floor. Palms, instantly drenched in blood. And at the same moment, As soon as I forgot my papers and came home to pick them up, I happened to see the scene. No mother can tolerate her son or daughter being bullied. So at that moment, anger welled up in my heart. I took off my high heels and rushed up, grabbed Luna Luo's head and slammed it hard against the wall. One blow after another. It really relieved my anger. I just didn't wait for me to return the favor and let him feel the pain of being hurt by the glass too. Alexander Chin came back. He saw me as hysterical woman, and watched the girl in his heart being bullied, not caring about his bawling children. He grabbed the knife on the counter and rushed towards me. In short, everything has been changed beyond recognition. When I didn't let you and Alexander Chin get together, you always thought that it was because I couldn't look down on you. But now you should be able to understand it. Right? Chen's mother walked in at an unknown time. Chen's father has been acting more and more absurdly in the past few years. Although Alexander Chin always said that he was sorry for his mother, but in the end is his own father. In addition to not seeing, but also nothing has helped Chen's mother. And Chen's mother also because of these things. More and more exhausted. These years is a lot of old. Sometimes I don't know what she is holding on to. I have also asked. She said that she is not willing to give up the position of Mrs. Chin to the outside mistress. Not willing to suffer alone. So also to pull Chin father to suffer together. However, Chin father does not have a heart. He will not suffer. She was never the only one who suffered. Why was this necessary? I couldn't help but sigh and walked over to her side holding the two children again. Chen's mother reached out and touched Sophie's head with a kind smile, but didn't look at Nate. I knew that she was afraid. Afraid of the Chin family's genes and raising another scumbag. But fortunately, you also have this pair of children, as well as the foundation of a relationship with Alexander Chin for more than 10 years. In the future, as long as you no longer think about love or not, and keep the children to live a life, it is still very comfortable. After saying that, she sighed lightly. Don't be obsessive and don't think about getting him back. It's all futile. At this, I shook my head without thinking. Mom, I'm not going to persuade Alexander Chin. Chen's mother smiled and nodded her head. Then I intend to divorce him. Chin mother did not finish her words. Was directly interrupted by me. A pair of children heard, but also just clenched my hand. Did not say anything. Are you crazy? Chin mother froze and looked down at Sophie and Nate. The children are so big. Turn a blind eye. The days will pass. And in the future, the family property is also your children's. Why do you need to toss it? It's not the same. Mom. I shake my head. I will take the share of property belonging to me and the child and then divorced. But if I am allowed to continue to compromise for decades for the sake of the entire family property, I cannot do it. Mom. That's how you've been through all these years. Are you really happy? Compromising yourself just so that one day when Father Chin grows old, his own son can inherit the company. Not to cheapen those bastards outside. However, looking at the heart of the love of the son gradually grew into their husband's treacherous appearance. Will not hit the bottom of the heart. Despair? I do not want the future of their son again grew into his father's appearance. I also do not want to be willing to give up the future decades for the child. So I am definitely going to divorce. I hold Chin mother's hand. Seriously open. Not only that, I also hope that you can seriously consider it. Not for anyone to commission and sacrifice. Just so that you can be a little happier. So Mom. You divorce too. Mother Chin didn't agree with my proposal. But it wasn't exactly a rejection either. Just left. face heavy, like she was thinking about something. And I was in no hurry. Whether it is to continue to entangle and torture in this marriage that has long been rotten, or to harden and dig out that piece of rotten meat in her heart to meet a different future. It is her choice. It's just that I didn't expect for this choice to come so early. A whole week had passed since the divorce from Alexander Chin had been filed, and he hadn't even come home. Sometimes Sophie Nate brings up Dad, but not much. After all, the scene that day was so chaotic. 2 children crying and wanting their father's arms, but only to see each other walking towards another strange little girl. Even at a young age, that is enough to make people sad. I met Alexander Chin again a week later at the old mansion. At that time, Chen's father and mother, who lived in the old mansion, started a knife fight with each other and saw blood. When Alexander Chen and I learned about it, we went to the old mansion. When we arrived at the place, we saw Chen's father and mother sitting at the 2 ends of the sofa, letting the family doctor bandage their wounds. Not far away, there was also a young and delicate little girl standing. I felt a little familiar. The next moment, the TV set played a commercial, and the actress in the commercial overlapped with the little girl in front of me. Chen's mother's face darkened again, and she raised her hand to pick up the remote control and smashed it against the TV. In an instant, the sound of the advertisement came to a screeching halt, and that little girl stood shivering, but the ambition in her eyes couldn't be stopped. Dad, Mom, what are you guys fighting about again? Arguments like this have happened countless times over the years. Only never before has blood been seen. At first, Alexander Chin would fight for his mother. Then it became too much. Gradually, a touch of impatience colored his eyes that even he hadn't noticed. You ask your father. Did he even put me in his eyes? To actually allow a little bitch to come to my door to provoke me, but also want to sleep in my room and wear my clothes. Also do not think about whether she is worthy? Chin Mother's face was iron blue, raising her hand to point at that little girl. Her fingertips were trembling slightly, and that little girl was not willing to show weakness. Muttering out, Mrs. Chin. No wonder Mr. Chin is not willing to go home. Just your temper. A man can't stand it, right? What's more, I just wanted to have a little fun with Mr. Chin. Who knew that you would go home so quickly? As she spoke, the little girl even rolled her eyes. And I learned from my aunt on the side that today, Chen's mother was originally going out to do a maintenance. But for some reason she suddenly folded back home again, and unexpectedly saw Chen's father bring this little star home. And the 2 of them were doing that kind of thing in her room. Wearing, or her pajamas. Once upon a time, no matter how to make trouble, that is also outside, is still considered to retain 3 face. This time even directly brought back home. Chin Mother. And how can swallow this breath? So finally argued. Made it into today's this way. Dad. You're old. Why are you still doing this kind of thing? Alexander Chin frowned slightly towards Chin Father. In the end, he still had some heartfelt dissatisfaction. However, Father Chin, who heard this, only raised his eyebrows and smiled. Then he looked up at this son who was very similar to himself, and a hint of contempt flashed in his eyes. If it was in the past, if you were to say these words to me, I might still be a bit embarrassed. But, Xing John, you yourself have a little girl by your side right now. Didn't you make a scene at home a few days ago? What? You can womanize, but your old man can't? If you can't set a good example yourself, how can you ask others to do the same? In an instant, Alexander Chen's face turned ugly to the extreme. Chen's mother was very angry and wanted to raise her hand to hit Chen's father again. Alexander Chen went forward to stop, but was accidentally caught on the back of his hand. Enough! Looking at the blood marks on the back of her hand, Alexander Chen reached out and pushed Chen's mother. Stop it! Isn't it just a woman? If you are really so displeased with it, just send the person out. Is it fun to make a scene like a hysterical woman in front of so many people? Hearing these words, Chen's mother, who was still furious just a moment ago, her eyes became unbelievable for a moment. She turned her head and stared blankly at her son. Perhaps she couldn't figure out how the son who had almost committed murder for himself had become what he was today. Alexander Chen, your father cheated on me and brought another woman to my door to humiliate me. And you told me to stop? Chen's mother's voice trembled a little when she said this. But in the end, it was her own mother. Alexander Chen took a deep breath and then began to persuade. I don't mean this. It's just that it's already like this. What's the point of making a scene? Do you still want to make room for the woman outside? One sentence made the light in Chen's mother's eyes go out. I looked at this farce. Looked at the same situation as my mother. Chen slowly walked up, held her hand. Mom, do you remember what I said to you before? Chen's mother looked up and locked eyes with me. At this moment, I already knew her choice. Farces like this had happened too many times. So afterward, Alexander Chen didn't take this matter to heart. After all, Mother Chen only had him as a son. No matter what, he would be her only dependence in the future. In the matter of interest, compared to me, Mother, perhaps, is more worthy of his trust. And after this matter happened, Chen's mother first shut herself in the room for 2 whole days. And then called me. Let me accompany her to go shopping. I naturally could not refuse. I just didn't expect that it would be such a coincidence to meet Alexander Chen, who was also shopping in the mall, as well as Luna Luo. An hour ago, he also called his daughter. Said he was too busy at work. Had to go abroad for a few days. So tomorrow his daughter's birthday cannot come home. He felt very sad. And then let people buy many gifts for his daughter to make up. And at this moment, the little lover beside him took his shoulder. No longer see half a bit of hurry. In the end, it's the people who are bad. And am not as upset as I was last time. Of course, I am also not generous. In public, my husband swept up another young, pretty little girl and walked up to me as if he were blind, without the slightest hint of weakness or guilt, while the silly girl passed one provocative glance after another in my direction. If they are shameless, why should I give them any face? What? Is being a mistress so blatant now? In front of the main man? How can you still wrap the arm of the gold master's father in such a dignified manner? And you just called your daughter about a business trip. And then you're shopping with your mistress. You're really a master of time management. I spoke loudly. So loudly that the other people in the mall were able to hear me clearly, thus stopping in their tracks unanimously and then glancing sideways. In an instant, Luna Luo's face became extremely ugly. Alexander Chen also swished his face coldly. He looked at me coldly. Sophia Su, don't fool around. After all, you are the one who is the boss. Outside, more or less, he still wants to save face. But this face was lost by himself. Just don't blame me for not being willing to continue to give him face. What? Aren't you my husband? This woman beside you is not your adopted mistress? When I said this, I deliberately paused for a moment. In fact, if you do not want to let your little lover aggrieved, it is very simple. As long as we divorce, you want to marry whoever you want to marry. I will not make a scene in front of you. You will not think that I am crazy. Each happy bad? I said it. I will never divorce you. Alexander Chen once again refused. Even if many condemning eyes fell on him, he did not half waver. I laughed. Both do not want to let go of me, but also cannot let go of the flowers and grass outside. Alexander Chen. What are you based on? Chen's mother, who had never said a word, suddenly reached out and pushed me after hearing my words. On what grounds? On the basis that he is my son. On the basis that he is young and talented. On the basis that you presumptuously want to achieve class leapfrog by climbing up the branch to become a phoenix. So now these sufferings. That is what you should suffer. Chen mother's face was mocking. Then she waved her hand at Luna Luo. Luna Luo smiled and walked towards Mother Chen. Auntie. I am Luna Luo. The person that Xingjian brother likes. She pretended to be a good girl and let Mother Chen hold her hand. Good child. You look just Sophia Su pleasing. Auntie very like. If you can be my daughter-in-law is good. Mom. What are you talking about? Alexander Chen frowned slightly, looking a bit dissatisfied. Chen's mother glared at him. When I told you not to marry Sophia Su, you didn't listen. But you swore to me that you would love her forever. Now do not just like on other little girls? I think Luna Luo is very good. And we also like each other. Why don't you divorce Sophia Su and marry Luna Luo? Hearing these words, Luna Luo's face was so happy that it was hard to hide it. And then she turned her head to look at Alexander Chen expectantly. As for Alexander Chen, his eyes fell on my face. The bottom of his eyes was a complexity that I could not understand. After a long time, he opened his mouth. Sophia Su is my wife. We have been a couple for 10 years. We will never divorce. Chen's mother, who heard this, just smiled, then looked at me again. It's fine. I don't like Sophia Su anyway. In the future, you bring Luna Luo to see me more often. Okay? In response, I couldn't help but open my mouth. Mom, even you want to insult me like that? Mother Chen sneered. Who made you unappealing? In the next moment, tears came out of my eyes. I covered my mouth and fled in a mess. At the Su family's dinner party, not many people were invited. Almost all of them were top companies in the same industry. The purpose is to seek a best cooperation object. And this project is almost a piece of fat meat that all companies in the industry want to nibble on this year. Chen's group is no exception. In other words, it should be a must-have. Alexander Chen also in the invitation. For this also specially back home, let me do his female companion to attend together. Simply because Mr. Su Mrs. Su, husband and wife for 40 years. Strong feelings. So the exclusive requirements of the partner is very high. Chen's group. My hand is also hold some shares. So the development of the company, but also about my income. Therefore, attending this banquet together is also considered unspoken. However, before attending, I also did not forget to pass this message to Luna Luo. The little girl is young and energetic. Prior to this, always every now and then on the in Alexander Chen all kinds of show love photos sent to me. The most excessive time, even directly found my daughter's school. The photos to the daughter's homeroom teacher. Let the daughter to bring home to me. My daughter saw those photos. Went home and didn't say a word. And since then, she has never called Alexander Chen a father. So I am just returning the favor. I know that Luna Luo will be very angry when she learns about this. After all, It was a long time ago, when I didn't know that they had been hanging out. She accompanied Alexander Chen to many high-end banquets. This time, Alexander Chen probably hid it from her. So when the message was sent over, I knew she would definitely take action. As expected. Half an hour after the banquet started, Luna Luo appeared in the banquet wearing the high-fashion gown bought by Alexander Chen. What brings you here? Seeing her appear, Alexander Chen's face instantly changed drastically, but still lowered his voice to inquire. Luna Luo was aggrieved. I know I have no name, but you promised me before. As a compensation, you will let me accompany you in every banquet in the future. But this time, you didn't even tell me, nor were you willing to bring me along. If it wasn't for the fact that I went to accompany my aunt and stole an invitation from her, I wouldn't have known that you actually brought her along. As she said that, Luna Luo looked like she was about to cry. It's not that I don't want to tell you, but this banquet is special. Everyone is bringing their wives. And I didn't. So it is also think that I cannot see people? Alexander Chen's words have not finished. The little girl is directly crying out, and then covered her mouth and ran out. Alexander Chen rushed to chase. The commotion was too big. There were already many people who could see over. Among them, included the host of this banquet. Who is that woman? Some people replied. Mr. Chen is a dashing man, with a good mother and wife at home, and a cute little lover outside. This is not the little lover temper. Also somehow ran to the banquet. Mr. Chen just chased out to coax it. I glanced at the person who spoke. Is Chen's opposite family. Is also Chen, the biggest rival in this project. At this moment, he is excited. This matter, to say big is not big, but to say small is not small. It was clear that everyone was unspoken, even if there was someone on the outside. At this banquet, they all brought their original wives. Only Alexander Chen, surprisingly, let his young lover make a scene at this banquet. Mr. Su expressed his dissatisfaction with this. This is an even match, but it is a loss of virtue. Before doing so many preparations, all counted in vain. The project was given to the other company. Alexander Chen was also scolded by Chen's father. Alexander Chen, what's wrong with your brain? How could you let the woman beside you do something bad? Do you know how much effort and money the company has invested in this project? Now because of that woman beside you, all of it has gone down the drain. I don't care how many women you have outside, but you have to be able to at least control them. If you don't listen, just get another one. There are plenty of women anyway. Alexander Chen, who heard this, looked at Chen's father in shock. Dad, Yan is different. Alexander Chen and Father Chen, more or less, are still the same. Alexander Chen and Father Chen are more or less different. Father Chen, after the first time he cheated on his wife, he got a taste of the sweetness. And since then, the women around him changed faster than the clothes. Alexander Chen is different. Luna Luo has been by his side for a year, and so far the relationship is very good. But it's hard to say. At first, he was also in love with me. Now not in the end or cheating change of heart. Perhaps. But it is a matter of time. Talk about the so-called deep love. Say more or ironic it. Listening to Alexander Chen's rebuttal, Chen's father gas dissipated. Directly put harsh words. You do not think that the company is now in your hands. You can really be unscrupulous? You know, my son is more than one. Like you, there are many capable people. If you can't do it, I can let my other sons take over. Alexander Chen's face turned pale when he said this. Love is a trivial matter. When it comes to interests, that is to be able to see the true color of people. After listening to this at the door of the study, I went straight downstairs and exchanged glances with Chen's mother, who was sitting on the sofa. This banquet, a long time ago to organize. That invitation that was placed on the coffee table was not something that was accidentally forgotten to pack. And Alexander Chen, who had just finished being reprimanded, had just come downstairs when he saw Chen Yi, who had walked in from outside the main door. Who told you to come? Alexander Chen's face was ugly. Chen Yi smiled smugly. Dad said that you are useless. So he let me enter the company, and we will manage it together in the future. My dear brother, I filed for divorce once again. This time, I have leverage. Now Dad has let Chen Yi enter the company to fight against you, and has transferred a portion of the shares to him in order for him to get a firm footing. If you don't divorce me, I will transfer all the shares I have in hand to Chen Yi. Hearing my words, Alexander Chen's eyes widened as if he didn't expect me to be so ruthless. Sophia Su, we have been a couple for so many years. Can you really bear to see me with nothing? Hearing his words, I couldn't help but laugh. Alexander Chen, we have been a couple for so many years. Then how can you bear to cheat and betray me? Mentioning Luna Luo once again, Alexander Chen's face was a bit unnatural. This is two different things. But in my case it is one thing. I took a deep breath and directly gave an ultimatum. You certainly do not want to give up everything you have worked so hard for so many years. Or your own half-brother's own. After all, once he is on top, how miserable you are. We all know it very well. So if you do not want to let his hands of the shares completely over you, agree to divorce with me. The 2 children belong to me. My hands of these shares you at a point to buy all. From now on we have nothing to do. How? As I said, I want a divorce. But I can't leave with nothing. And these shares in my hand, once realized, it will be an extremely considerable wealth. I can't possibly not want it. At this, Alexander Chen gasped and laughed. Sophia Su, you are really greedy. I returned the same smile. No way. I learned from you. Isn't he greedy? Neither willing to divorce me, nor willing to give up Luna Luo. Both want the result. That is a basket of water. Before I left, I said one last thing to him. I do not accept credit. I give you a month to make preparations. It happens to be now going to divorce. A month later can get a divorce certificate. By then the shares transferred to you. You give me the money. From now on we are clear. As I said, love affairs are ultimately trivial. One's self-interest is involved. The so-called deep love is just a skeleton in the skin. Disgusting. Just like before, how to say will never divorce Alexander Chen. At this moment, still signed the divorce agreement I prepared. Another cold face and I went to the Civil Affairs Bureau. A month later. Go again. We'll be able to get a divorce certificate. And from the Civil Affairs Bureau back. Alexander Chen is considered completely moved out of this home. Directly and Luna Luo live together. And I, too, did not continue to live here again. Over the years, I have a good balance of savings and several properties under my name. So I chose one with a nice view and moved there directly with my 2 children. And for a long time after that, I would receive all kinds of strange text messages, which will occasionally be interspersed with photos. Some of them were of Alexander Chen sitting on the sofa watching TV with Luna Luo in his arms. Some were of 2 people holding hands. strolling together on the beach. Some, a messy bed sheet, as well as the bed scattered ravaged paper towels. In short, it is a demonstration and a show-off. Can't talk about heartache. Can't say sadness. The most real reaction, from the bottom of the heart, guilty of that nausea, will eat me a little bit. The Alexander Chin in my memory who said this kind of not betrayal. Little by little killed. Pain is inevitable. Dig through the rotten flesh so that the wound can scab over. For a whole month, Alexander Chin was busy being entwined in love with his little girl. And at the same time, he was busy fighting with Chinyi. When we met again a month later, he had lost a lot of weight. Sophia Sue. I still say the same thing. In fact, as long as you want, you will be my only wife forever. Must we go to the point of divorce? I looked at the door of the Civil Affairs Bureau, looked at the blue sky, looked at the pedestrians passing by. But I don't want to look at him beside me. Alexander Chin, your so-called only, really make me sick. I'm not going to be able to do that. But I'm going to be able to do it. When I came out again, looking at the book in my hand, my heart was inexplicably solid. I am not sure if this is a good idea, but I think it is a good idea. Alexander Chin, however, looked much more forlorn than me, staring at that small book. I do not know what to think. Sophia Sue, from now on, we are still friends. I smiled and did not answer. Just before leaving, I suddenly remembered a question. Alexander Chin, after divorcing me, will you marry Luna Luo? At this moment, the wind blew and the cicadas chirped again. He was in a trance for a moment, and then firmly shook his head. I said it. I will only marry you alone in this life. This promise will never change. In this way, then I am also assured. Lowering his head, holding the cell phone in his hand, the page is slightly bright. I directly packaged the video to Luna Luo. It is hard to hope for my divorce. This little girl naturally full of heart and eyes waiting for Alexander Chin to marry her. If you see this video, I'm afraid that it will make a big fuss again. As expected, on the day I sent the video to her, the little girl made a scene, yelling either divorce or break up. Alexander Chin coaxed him while continuing to fight with Chinyi. After buying those shares in my hand, Alexander Chin in the company will be more like a fish in water. But Luna Luo can't help it. The day of the shareholders' meeting, Luna Luo play missing, went to a very dangerous country. In the end is now in love with the little girl. Alexander Chin heart anxious. Alexander Chen's mother has proposed a way to get the best of both worlds at this moment. Alexander Chen's shares, all transferred to Chen's mother. Plus Chen's mother already have shares in hand. Then at the shareholders' meeting, she can have a veto. In this way, even if Alexander Chin is not present, the result of this shareholders' meeting will not change, and Chinyi is destined to be kicked out of the company. Of course, with so many shares all transferred to someone else, Alexander Chin would naturally be uneasy. But this is not someone else either. Chen's mother was his mother. Conceived in October, her bloodline was connected, and she was the closest and dearest existence. So with only a slight hesitation, he finally signed the stock transfer agreement, and then hurriedly left the country to look for his little girl. On the same day, the shareholders' meeting was held. That country is too dangerous and is at war. The signal is not good. So by the time Alexander Chin found Luna Luo and brought her back to China, he didn't know about the huge changes in the group until the moment the plane landed. The Chin group couldn't be considered purely a family business. In the beginning, It was founded by several families together. And then it was constantly financed. Plus Chen's father was quite skillful, holding the most shares and becoming the CEO of the company. But this does not mean that the founders of the beginning do not want to be on the throne. Chen mother's hands of the shares, an extremely substantial price, sold to one of them. That family is not the most powerful. On the contrary, the most useless. This meant that such a large group was about to go into decline. Chen's father was so angry that he had a heart attack. He was hospitalized in the ICU and is still in a coma. Alexander Chen found my mother and I. We are discussing to go on vacation. Only the location is not yet decided. Mom, why are you doing this to me? Facing Alexander Chen's questioning, Chen's mother just smiled, then said, "Once upon a time, I also regarded you as my only hope in this life. So in order to allow you to successfully inherit the company, I was never willing to compromise, nor was I willing to divorce your father. Later on, I saw you walk up to the high position, watched you and your husband and wife. I am really happy for you. But I did not expect. You and your father is really the same lineage. The same both fell in love with their own financial aid female students. The same betrayal of their wives. Not only that, I thought you would at least be on my side. But I didn't realize that my son, who I worked so hard to give birth to, would not be able to empathize with me. In that case, you and I are just strangers by blood. And you and your father are family. So why should I continue to guard the company for you?" After saying that, Chen's mother called the security guards and drove him away. Once he left, Chen's mother and I continued our discussion. I mentioned divorce to that old man before, and I got the divorce certificate 2 days before the shareholders' meeting. The contract was signed the day before the meeting, so I don't have to worry about the division of property, which is a large amount of property, enough for me to spend. As for that old thing, before I heard the doctor mentioned a mouth, said that these years the body is hollowed out, very weak, coupled with a sudden cerebral infarction. I sent him to the hospital that day, accidentally delayed a bit of time. The doctor said to send a little bit late. And then even if you can live, it can only be a lifetime lying in a hospital bed. Quite good. After saying that, she smiled and pinched Sophie's cheeks. From now on, our family will stay together, happy and joyful. A year later, in the middle of summer, Chen's mother and I were vacationing abroad with our 2 children. We occasionally heard about what was happening at home. Alexander Chen rejected my claim without thinking. Sue to Alexander Chen wanted to break up. Luna Luo unwilling. Directly to death. The knife that was once placed on Alexander Chen's neck was later placed on my neck. And now it has fallen on another girl's neck. Alexander Chen didn't give in, and the 2 of them grabbed the handle of the knife and pulled it back and forth. In the end, the tip of the knife went into Alexander Chen's chest and he died instantly. Luna Luo was jailed. When Chen's father found out about the incident, he was too emotional and died. Then, the Big Chen Group, because of the leader's failure, project after project was cancelled. From the once leading enterprises gradually towards the decline. In the end, it went bankrupt and ceased to exist. As for me, Sophia Su, the rich woman in the eyes of outsiders, raising 2 children alone, occasionally have boyfriends. Life is really elegant.